It's time for MacBreak Weekly, our Veterans Day version, and a salute to all of our Armed Forces members, past, future, and present, and our thanks to all of you for your service. Coming up, Lindsay, Rene, Ritchie, and yes, Ihnatko. We'll talk about the latest Mac news. No, you don't have to worry. iOS is not completely pwned. That's coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 428, recorded November 11th, 2014. Big boy pants. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to audible.com/MacBreak. And by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. Now introducing Squarespace 7 with even better site management tools and other improvements. For a free 2-week trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code MacBreak. And by Personal Capital. With Personal Capital, you'll finally have all your financial life in one place and get a clear view of everything you own. Best of all, it's free. To sign up, go to personalcapital.com/MacBreak. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest Apple news, of which there is little, but we'll find a way. We'll always find a way. That's because we have some of the best gab fest mongers in the biz. Starting with Ihnatko. Andy, I have no idea, Ihnatko.
Don't know if you just called me a GabFest mongrel, but it is accurate, and I will embrace it.
Great to have you. What is that picture behind you? It says note.
Oh, that's from the research library in the Boston Public Library. It is like a very, very old like call slip box. And if I zoomed out on it, you'd be
wow.
It's just this beautiful it's been there since like 1963.
It looks like it's done by a 1930s cartoonist. That exclamation mark particularly.
It's
stylish.
like we used to know how to do good handwriting back then. And if you were a librarian who likes to have things in numerical order, like 80,000 objects in precise numerical order, line spacing, kerning, these are important to you.
Yes.
And so I didn't go to the library to photograph that, but I was like looking up some stuff like, oh, that's just a beautiful object. And I wonder if I could, if I hear one complaint about, oh, geez, those old filthy boxes, I'm just terrified. I'll go on Amazon. I'll buy some new boxes if I can take one of those.
You've been getting some great pictures in Boston public buildings of late.
It is. I gave a talk at Mac Tech for about an hour about some of the stuff in the Boston Public Library. It is just a real palace, and the best thing, whenever people ask me, hey, I've got one afternoon in Boston, I always say, Boston Public Library, what should you do? Fenway Park is nice, the Museum of Science is nice, but yeah, I think you want to go to the Boston Public Library.
Unless you're in Montreal, in which case you'd probably want to go see the Montreal Expos. Rene, Ritchie.
No, Leo. We lost the Royals to Kansas City. We lost the Expos to Washington. We have no more of the baseball. We even lost the Nordiques to Colorado. We're not doing too well.
That's kind of cruel. That's kind of cruel of me. I'm sorry.
They even took the hockey.
Yeah, they even took our hockey. But you know what? They didn't take Rene Ritchie. He's still there. imore.com. Great to have you, Rene.
Great to be here, Leo, even if it is already going dark outside as we speak.
No, really?
I mean, I can see the sun setting. It's just, it's abysmal.
Wait a minute. It's 2:22 in Montreal in the afternoon.
It'll be dark by 4:30. It'll just, yeah. Vampires love it, but the rest of us are kind of bummed.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, I can probably normally I have these like blackout curtains like next to here to like keep out like the sunlight. Now I just remember that with daylight savings, I can actually probably open these up because you're right. It's not sunset yet, but the sun has decided. Yeah, I'm out of here. You guys have fun. I'm going elsewhere.
Back from his jaunts around the world, Mr. Lindsay of the Pixel Corps. Great to have you in studio with us.
Good to be back.
Yeah. You've been doing some interesting things of late. I don't know how much I could talk about.
I'm actually allowed to talk about it.
You were at the
I'm not allowed to talk about details.
Air and Space Museum.
Yes, last week.
Last week for a hangout for a movie.
Interstellar.
I watched it.
Yeah. How'd it look?
It looked stunning.
Yeah, it was.
Is that the first time they've done? It must be the first time they've done a hangout there. But did they ever do
any TV there?
They do. So they actually, it's kind of cool. The Air and Space Museum, this was in the Beyond Earth, I think, area. And they have actually this little stage, and they have cameras that come down from these big risers. Our cameras were a little different than theirs, and so we figured we'd use ours. And so, but we added lights and cameras and actors and all kinds of other stuff. But yeah, you should definitely check it out. It's the Interstellar. I think you just go to YouTube and just search really Interstellar
Matthew
Hangout.
McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain.
Yep,
really great.
They were. It was a good. I thought it was a really fun conversation.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
It was a really good one, and Matthew McConaughey is pretty intense.
Crazy.
Yes.
All right.
He pays very good attention. I bet you. I don't know if he was always like that.
Very focused.
Some people think he's a pessimist, but he prefers to think himself as a realist.
But it was really definitely worth checking out.
And a good movie. Did you guys see Interstellar yet?
No.
No, not yet.
But bring a lunch. Bring a lunch. It's long.
It's Chris Nolan, and he's on my list of I got to see that movie. Like no matter what he's doing. I'm also now encouraged to see it by all the belly aching I've been hearing about. The science isn't accurate. You know that's not nearly safe. That astronaut suit isn't nearly warm enough to protect so and so.
This is a little different because they had there it is. Look how good that looks, and you can see the Air and Space Museum kind of behind. Whoever that woman is, and
someone got in a tuxedo for this.
My imaginary girlfriend. Yeah. Actually,
they were all YouTube stars. So Sheryl Lazar was on. And,
you had great hangout members, including
astronauts.
Astronauts, physicists, some people who could really talk about the science. The guy who worked on this with the Nolans, because it was Christopher Nolan, but I think is that his brother, the co-author. He's a Nolan.
Yep.
Jonathan Nolan worked with Kip Thorne, a physicist. In fact, the movie was inspired by Kip Thorne's work on black holes, and Thorne himself did a lot of the calculations for how black holes. It's a spinning black hole, which is apparently very unusual, and the physics and the calculations involved are much more complex. But you were telling me, was it you who told me that Kip Thorne was saying, I learned stuff, seeing the visualizations made for the movie, the CGI visualizations for the movie actually taught me. There was some science that I learned from that.
And I'm not surprised. I mean, I think a lot of times, I hadn't heard that, but I think Neil deGrasse said that this was the most accurate space film he'd ever seen. You know,
and none of them are perfect because, as everybody says, story comes first in a movie.
Absolutely, but I think that Christopher Nolan is probably more committed to that kind of. He's just a geek, so he really wants it to be as right as possible. But I think that. And it grounds, when you ground it as much in science as you can, of course, it just feels more real, when you're watching it. But I think that one of the things that's really important is that visualization. I know that there's a lot of things around data that you learn very, very quickly when you can see it real time or just see what your ideas are visualized. And I think a lot of these physicists don't usually have access to hundreds of millions or tens of millions of dollars to visualize their ideas, and so they don't get to see what that is. And I think that's
here's a little clip from the movie. I think you'll enjoy this.
Amazing for me.
Absolutely. Mark,
and very good for everybody. And you know that they are all waiting.
No, this is not a clip from the movie. No. This is actually the live footage from the European Space Agency. The comet landing is coming up momentarily.
I'm always like the paranoid, like, what could possibly go wrong? You knock the comet off of its orbit, and next thing you know, it destroys Earth. Not that I'm a Luddite.
Totally dissimilar to the first act of many movies. Totally dissimilar.
Yeah, the problem is I watch too many Deep Impact, and you're just like.
I think you'll enjoy Interstellar. I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's going to be a science fiction classic. A la 2001.
I can't wait.
Here's an interesting story. Let's move right into the Macintosh and the Apple news. You know that yesterday is Singles Day in China. Apparently, their version of a Hallmark holiday. Because there has always been Children's Day and the Grandparents' Day, but there was never a Singles.
Is there a Valentine's Day or just a Singles Day? Like, we don't care once you get married.
The Chinese New Year is February 19th, so I'm wondering maybe this is in lieu of a Valentine's Day. So they have Singles Day, and Alibaba recorded huge sales, partly because of this guy. He bought 99 iPhone 6s to form a heart in which he proposed to his girlfriend.
That's why there's a shortage.
She is surrounded by, and I'm telling you, in China, 99 iPhone 6, well, anywhere, that's a lot of money. But by the way,
I mean, the number may mean something, but the bottom line is that you got to be lucky if you can afford 99 iPhones or crazy.
I'm sorry, I call BS. Well, it seems like such a natural stunt for like promoting like iPhone sales.
Maybe
and
that
also,
was it.
I just want to let's set this scene where you're this person's girlfriend. You've gotten to the scene and he's inviting you to step inside this big wall of like heart-shaped iPhones. I don't think that any woman has ever been surprised by a wedding proposal. And would she walk in, let him get through the entire thing, and then say no, or would she just say, "Tell you what, why don't you step out with me and let's face away from the cameras and let's have a talk"?
Because she did. She said no.
Yeah, I don't
100
buy it.
iPhones, you would have said.
That's how you make this into a viral sensation, and I don't know.
Oh, you are just ruining my day.
I am here to drill holes in your rowboat, Leo.
Next thing you're going to tell me is the Rosetta landing is just being staged.
Not staged. They're using mostly digital effects now, so they don't need actually to do a sound stage. I don't think they're doing a lot of green screen stuff. It's mostly wire work.
That looks real. Come on.
I'm sorry. I should have said spoiler alert.
So you know. Now that you mentioned it, this is a little too perfect. It's 2 years' salary for this Chinese programmer to buy 99 iPhones.
That's a good salary in.
What does he do with them afterwards?
Well,
what's the plan here? You have 99 of them, and then does she get them? Does he give them away?
Is there
all the attendees?
China has the relationship with the United States where people come here to buy iPhones to sell them at markup. Is there a place that's even more China than China where they can take those 99 and make even more money off of them?
Japan.
Yeah, my suspicion, now that you say it, is this does seem like a promotional vehicle. Not necessarily for iPhones, but more for Singles Day. And go out and spend heavily. Singles Day is only a few years old, and I think created by Alibaba.
Be a good consumer.
Yeah.
Alibaba getting 99 iPhones seems realistic.
Yeah. All right. I thought I'd mention that.
We're terrible people, Leo. We're
terrible people. I'm going to tell you how Interstellar ends, Andy, and you'll be sorry.
Big Hero 6 is a lovely movie.
I'm going to see that tonight.
It's a very heavily like Pro Mac shop there at Disney Animation.
You're going to be, speaking of Pro Mac shops, you're going to be so jealous when you see what I've done to my keyboard here.
Ooh.
Killer Duck decals. These are all comic book characters. Oh, wait a minute. I showed you that last week. Never mind.
There was no Andy last week.
I wasn't here last week. You're all
that's right. You weren't here.
Than I am.
Okay. Okay. I already had, I had to get.
Tim Cook still gay? I don't know because I wasn't on the show last week.
We don't know. We had to get Rene go through these to tell me who they all are. Some of them are obvious, Batman and Green Lantern, but I didn't know Punisher, for instance. So, all right, let's take a break. When we come back, there is some news. Finally, a solution for those folks who moved from iPhone to Android and can no longer get messages. But first, a word from Audible.com. I like starting the show with Audible because we are big Audible fans. We listen to a lot of audiobooks on Audible. And goodness knows there are plenty to listen to. If you go to Audible.com, you'll notice 150,000 plus titles. The newest stuff, look, they've got the new Stephen King. It just came out today. A terrifying masterpiece, revival. In a small New England town over a half a century ago, a shadow falls over a small boy playing with his toy soldiers. Jamie Morton looks up. This seems like I've read this before. To see a striking man, the new minister. Anyway, if you're a Stephen King fan, you know this is a big event when there's a new Stephen King novel. This one is 13 hours and 24 minutes, and I'm going to tell you how you can get it free in just a moment. Audible is a great place to go to find the latest stuff. I just started listening to, and I'm really enjoying it. David Byrne, the lead man on Talking Heads, has written a book about music.
Oh, isn't it great?
You're really listening to that, Jason?
Yeah, I listened to it a while back.
I've listened to the first chapter, and already my eyes are popping.
Yeah, because it's kind of half autobiography, half just like his random musings on what it takes to be a creative musician. It's really fascinating.
I bet as a musician, Jason, you really got a lot
I love it. That's pretty much exclusively what I listen to on Audible are all music-related audio.
Graham Nash's book is awesome.
That was great.
I'm listening to that Beatles book you recommended some time ago, Andy. Here's All Quiet. Oh, this is good for Veterans Day. All Quiet on the Western Front, a classic anti-war movie, but also the novel that it's based on by Eric Maria Remarque. Helmet for My Pillow by Robert Leckie. The Things They Carried. If you haven't read this, this is an amazing novel of soldiers in Vietnam that I think anybody who's ever read this will just agree is a must-read. And Bryan Cranston narrates it. So you know this is going to be very beautiful. Cranston, of course, we all know, is the father as Breaking Bad guy.
Yep, he is a father in Breaking Bad.
He's also the father in what is the show that he?
Oh right,
Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah.
I got a little audio. Are you hearing it? This is Bryan Cranston reading The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien.
In the accompanying letter, Martha wrote that she had found the pebble on the Jersey shoreline, precisely where the land touched the water at high tide.
Oh, I want to listen
where
to this.
things came together.
I want to
also
reread this.
separated.
I read it as a book, but I'd love to get it as audio. And that's what's great about audiobooks from audible.com. They come to life. You're hearing them and you're really seeing them on the movie screen in your brain, and it's so powerful. So here's the deal. You can get a free audiobook right now if you go to audible.com/MacBreak. One audiobook you might consider the Stephen King or perhaps The Things They Carried or one of the classics. They have lots of classics. Science fiction. I just got the newest Peter Hamilton novel. I'm a big fan of Hamilton's. Just a fabulous place. If you love reading or if you wish you could get back to reading but you just don't have the time, get in the car, hook up the iPhone or the Android device or the Windows phone and start listening. And I think you might drive around the block a few extra times just to hear another chapter or two. What are you listening to these days, Andy?
Well, I finally got around to reading The Martian, and then as
you loved that, didn't you?
Just as you say, it's like I got to kind of like get the audiobook because that was also heavily recommended. But we've been plugging that book like for months and months.
Wonderful, good.
I would like to say that most of my books are lofty novels that you'd have to be in postgraduate English theory in order to read and read and understand. A lot of them though are just like show business, like memoirs. And Martin Short has a new one that came out last week. And it's really, really funny. And what really attracted me to it was that in the Audible edition, he actually narrates the thing himself.
Excellent.
And so when you have a comedian who has 30 years worth of stage performance, telling stories about his own life, goodness gracious, that's like, you know what? Maybe I won't fly to Philadelphia. Maybe I'll just drive the whole way because that seems like a good way to spend 4 to 8 hours.
Nevertheless, after questioning both candidates, the interviewer declares, "Your credentials are so darn equal, and I don't know how to decide. I can't make up my mind." The male candidate proposes that the matter be settled by arm wrestling.
I must say, my life as a humble comedy legend, written and narrated by Marty Short. That is nice.
Good stuff. I was really because you've seen him on talk shows enough that you feel like you've heard at least 20% of his life, but there's stories about, if you're a fan of comedy, there are new stories about Second City and not the TV show and the stage performance about the 70s, about the early SNL. It's just really terrific stuff.
See, and this is then okay, as always with Audible, it says people who bought this also bought, and then you see all these other books you want to listen to, like Dick Cavett's memoirs, read by Dick Cavett, Sophia Loren's memoirs, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, My Life, Neil Patrick Harris's autobiography, read by Neil, Bob Hope. I mean, I could go on and on and on.
That's a really interesting one. That is actually next up. The next one I'm gonna use my credits for, the Bob Hope autobiography. The Bob Hope biography, because enough time has passed by that it's possible to do like a scholarly biography of a very, very major figure who has had an incredible career and also touched a lot, had a lot of experiences, a lot of lives, and now it's okay with 20 years worth of perspective to say, okay, but he did cheat around a lot, and his politics were like this, and he was nice, but he wasn't all that nice.
Right. I can't wait. And this is the problem with Audible. I want more time to listen. In the car, at the gym, walking the dog, doing the dishes. Audible.com/MacBreak. There's definitely a book for you. Get that first one free. First week, you get the first month free in our gold plan, which means a book a month. And you can cancel any time in that first month, and you get to keep that book forever. But I don't think you'll cancel. Audible.com/MacBreak. We thank them for their support. And I thank you, Andy, because you always have great Audible recommendations. Now, there's 8 more books on my list. You know, I've been going through my Audible list, and there's books that I haven't listened to going back 5 years. You know, I'll buy it, but and then I don't get around to it. And so I can't wait till I retire. I'm just going to listen to Audible all day.
Time. There's time enough at last.
There's so many good books in the world. Don't you wish you could just, I just love it. Read and read and read and read.
Yeah, that's been actually, because now I live in Pittsburgh and I go back and forth to DC a lot. You know, there's this, you're right on the edge of does it.
Do you take the train or plane?
I have to. There's no train from Pittsburgh, only from Philadelphia. So I have to decide whether I'm going to drive or fly. And it's been halfway, but I'm now leaning towards more and more driving just because I get to listen to books.
You listen to the book?
Yep, exactly.
You don't have to sit in the airport. I hate sitting.
Plus, you get to keep your knife.
And I get to keep my knife. Exactly. But I don't even like to relax. I don't even like to relax and put a knife in there because I'll forget it. I've gone through like I don't know how many Leathermans.
Yeah, this is. I lost my last knife on the last trip last week.
Yeah,
because I was in such a rush to get out of the. I didn't know if I was going to make my shuttle, and so I had to buy it. God, you just never feel so dumb as when TSA holds up a knife.
Yeah,
it says, "Is this yours, sir?" So, yes, it is. No, excuse me. No, it is no longer. I suppose. Thank you very much.
I had one in Zimbabwe where I had the little mini Leatherman, and they it was a domestic trip just to Victoria Falls, and the guy says, "Oh, you can't get on the phone. I can't get on." I said, "Can you keep it here? I'm going to be back in the evening. Just keep it here." Then I was like, because I had gotten caught without it. Yeah, caught with it. And I was
knife,
like,
man.
And I was like, and he's like, "Oh, I can't do that." And I said, but it's this was a gift. I can't. I don't want to give it up. And he goes, he looked at me and he goes, "Here, you can have it, but don't do anything bad with it."
Well, that's encouraging.
I was like, I'm really happy to get my knife, but it makes me very worried. It was a very tiny knife.
Let me tell you about the time where I was at the park and ride for like the $20 shuttle from like satellite parking and then the half-hour ride into Logan, and I'd forgotten to like leave my Leatherman, like my $80 like Leatherman Wave like at home.
Yeah,
and it was in my pocket, and I'm waiting for the bus. It's going to leave in about 20 minutes. Like damn it, there's no way out because it's just gonna be lost. And I thought, well, if it's gonna be taken away from me at the TSA anyway, I have nothing to lose. And so I waited to see everyone else was like about to leaving the place to go to board the bus, got on my hands and knees and hid it behind one of the vending machines. And then walked away and said, okay, in a week's time, it's either going to be still there or it's not going to be still there. And a week later, yes, it was still there.
That's great.
And the entire place wasn't shut down because the suspicious man hid something, a possible explosive device, in a waiting area.
Oh boy, yeah. You hope you weren't any cameras on you doing that.
I'm a shifty person. I've had that said to me about me a lot. I'm a very shifty person.
Shifty fellow. We saw that in Ihnatko. So, Trouble in Paradise, the end of the line for, no, it's not. But The Verge said the end of the line for iPhone and iOS users in the days of...
Maddening.
Yeah, it was so bad.
Reuters was terrible yesterday. Reuters was just abysmal yesterday.
Well, what was Reuters' headline? Do you remember? Let me see if I can find it.
It was about mask attack.
Mask attack, right.
Yeah. But all of them, the headline, they care so much about getting people to click that they don't care at all about scaring people needlessly about malware attacks that are both not new and also do not target 90% of the people who are reading their sites.
Yeah. New malware mask attack targets iOS, replaces apps to steal data. So there have been lately a number of exploits exposed. There's that exploit that you get if somebody can get to your computer, he can escalate to administrator. What is it? Root pipe. Root pipe. But somebody has to be sitting at your computer to root pipe you.
Right. Or they have to have exploited you previously and gotten remote access. Right. Yeah, so it's a secondary attack.
Yeah. Mask attack. Mask short for masquerade. FireEye discovered this. They say hackers exploited a flaw.
Not. It's like 2 years old.
Oh, never mind.
They claimed they discovered it. Jonathan Zdarsky wrote about it months ago, and people have been writing about it for months longer. And it's not an exploit. They're using enterprise certificates, which is functionality Apple provides for enterprise to deploy apps to masquerade as other apps. So they have to first get you to download an enterprise app, outside the App Store, and then click through all the warnings saying, "Do you really trust this developer?" And then you install it on your device. And then they also have to make sure the app they're emulating hasn't done any encryption on their end. Otherwise, the information is still not available to them.
But The Verge said that the iPhone has lost its perfect security record.
It's terrible.
That is the worst headline.
I can't figure out what it never had a perfect record to begin with. It was just so difficult to hit that it was just no point in even trying.
There's so many things wrong with this. First of all, It doesn't have a perfect security record. There's been malware in the App Store for a long time. Of course, Apple removes it immediately, but we know about it. So what you get here is, well, as we know, The Verge kind of is a fan of iOS, and so you get here like a fanboy suddenly realizing and then saying it's lost its perfect. There's nothing in this headline that's accurate.
No.
Link bait.
Nor the Reuters one, nor most of the other blog.
What about Wire Lurker?
Wire Lurker is almost the same thing. It also uses enterprise, but what it does is if you go to a certain pirated app site in China, if you want to get wares, and then you download a pirated app, and they usually make it like a very popular, expensive game or something, you download it, and then you blow past all the security. Do you want to trust this app because it's not from a signed developer? And then you install it. If you're jailbroken, after you install it on your Mac, it waits for you to connect an iOS device. And if the iOS device is jailbroken, it can start taking things off the device because you've removed all the security Apple puts on the device during the jailbreak process. If not, it can try to copy some information off depending on how secure individual apps and things are.
And in this case, you would get it mostly because you were using a third-party app store in China.
Which try to steal apps, and it's the same thing when they used to put viruses inside movie downloads on Usenet.
So the real world analogy would be if you leave your keys in the car and the window down, and you drive into a bad part of town.
Right.
Someone may, you may actually have your car stolen.
But I should point out, The Verge isn't completely wrong. This is, in fact, only the second known time a malware attack on iOS has come through OS 10 using USB. So they're close.
And Apple can revoke the permission for any enterprise certificate
and they have,
by the way, abusive. Yes.
They have. So bottom line this for us. Is there anything to worry about, Rene?
If you do go to that specific Chinese pirate app site, download apps and install them, especially if you are jailbroken, you should worry, and you should take all the steps that we detail in the article about how to find out if you're infected and how to remove the infection. If you're just a regular person using the App Store, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. Glory days are still with you.
What's interesting to me is that mobile devices in general seem like they'd be ripe pickings for bad guys because there's so many ways you can make money on a mobile device, sending text messages to paid text message sites in the Bahamas and getting $25, or just all the data that's on it. I mean, it just seems like ripe pickings. For years, we really expected that all these devices would be just compromised like crazy, and they've both, and I have to say this is true of Android as well, and BlackBerry and Windows Phone, they've all proven much more robust than one would expect, given how ripe a target they are.
And I think that
there's an obvious reason for that. It's because the functions that you try to attempt on these devices are so limited. The OS developers can create such aggressive firewalls and such aggressive sandboxes to make it a really, really hard thing to do. If you were to try to sandbox a desktop OS that way, it would just be absolutely useless as a productivity tool.
Well, and I think also that these operating systems are much more recent than desktop operating systems, and as a result, they have been designed with security much more in the forefront, have they not?
I definitely think
so. But imagine imagine a computer where you can't plug anything into it, and imagine a computer in which all software you can't extend anything, you can't add capabilities to anything because every app is designed to be just absolutely walled off from everything else, and even getting information from one app to another is going to be a hellacious trial. So I mean, that is a reason why. But for a lot of people, that really doesn't bother them at all. It doesn't interfere with their ability to do email, to write a term paper, to do all that other sort of stuff. So it's really a pointer to how great the future is for mobile devices if you want to switch from a laptop to an iPad, say.
Yeah. And I think we're going to see more and more security as we do more and more biometrics. I mean, I think that the thumb, the little thumbprint,
Touch ID
is the beginning of that. But I think, we're not that far away.
Let me point out something. Touch ID is no more secure than a 4-digit PIN. It's just more convenient.
I wouldn't say that. You can't copy it. You can't copy a fingerprint.
All right.
You can't shoulder search.
So somebody okay. All right.
So for instance, if I do an ATM, there are people with infrared cameras, and if I do my PIN at the supermarket, they can see the heat marks, which is why I tend to do more.
I stand corrected. If you're spied upon, you're right. You could see somebody's PIN. You can't see somebody's fingerprint and steal it.
The other cool thing is that people are not going to choose a fingerprint that's easy to remember.
Well, it's so funny because Apple doesn't let you choose a PIN that's, quote, highly crackable, like 2222, except by doing so reduces the 10,000 possible choices significantly. So in a way, it's kind of not exactly what you want, because now hackers don't have to try 1111 and 2222,
right?
Because Apple won't let you use them. So I think there's an open question about whether that's a good practice or not. People should be allowed to choose anything.
You can switch to a password if you want.
Right, or make it a password.
So convenient. Yeah.
So, but barring looking over your shoulder, I don't think a 4-digit PIN is less secure than its fingerprint. But the over-the-shoulder attack is genuine. So
the print was 1 in 80,000, and the passcode was 1 in 10 or 20,000 or something.
10,000.
But again, if someone with a dedicated CSI, they could come and make a mold of your fingerprint and put it on plastic. I mean, it depends on how much valuable you are as a target.
Yeah. I mean, and you can always and should set your password attempts to 10, and then erase after that. And I think at that point,
unless you have young kids.
So yes, I agree with you. Fingerprint is more secure because of that scenario.
I think fingerprints is the beginning.
These are secure. I mean, these devices are secure.
Yeah, no, they're very secure. But I think that we're going to only see more security. I mean, I think that there are a lot of things that have been floating around in, you know, a lot of other places for a long time, whether it's, you know, facial recognition, you know, as well as voice recognition. And it's not that any one of those is accurate or any one of those is more secure, but if you start adding those things up for things that really need to be a high security, like I have a 4-digit code and I have my thumb and I have a voice for, you know, for enterprise, I think that becomes very useful.
And we should point out, I guess, that a judge has ruled, as we expected, that the fingerprint is not protected by the Fifth Amendment. It is not in the same way that a password is.
Yeah.
So you can be compelled to offer your fingerprint by law enforcement because that's something you have. The Fifth Amendment, according to this judge, and I think many people have thought this all along, this just confirms it, the fingerprint is like a DNA test or which you cannot refuse, or a blood test which you cannot refuse. And the password is something in your head, and you can plead the Fifth and say, I reserve the right not to self-incriminate, and that is a right that you have. So in that regard, I guess if you're worried about law enforcement, a PIN code would be better.
And you can choose in iOS whether you want the Touch ID to unlock your phone or not. You can just turn that off and leave it on for purchases.
Ah, that's a good idea. So you could still use Touch ID for Apple Pay and everything else, just not to unlock. But who's going to do that? It's so nice just to hold the phone.
No, but the thing is that the other question is, if you think you're in a situation where you're in trouble, turn it off.
Right. You know, or get your attorney to stall for 2 days, because if you don't use the Touch ID within 48 hours, it requires a PIN code.
Right. Or but like literally in seconds you can have it. You can just turn it off, you know, and then someone asks for your phone.
Yeah, though, and that's the other. That's what some people have said, but I think that that's not quite fair. But to say, well, just say, oh yeah, here. Oh, I guess it doesn't work anymore. No, it's because it was this thing. Oh, never mind. All right. In any event, it's clear that despite these overblown stories about exploits and malware, that mobile devices, not just the iPhone, but generally mobile devices, are safer. More
secure. There was that one thing too, Leo, where they said that, if you have a significant other who's maybe curious about your activities, they can't get a password from you, but when you fall asleep, they can still put your finger on the Touch ID.
If you are sleeping with somebody who would do that, it might be time to move out. I'm just saying. There has been for years a complaint by people who move from iOS to Android that iMessage is too dumb to figure that out, and continues to, your friends who use iPhones will continue to send you messages that you can no longer read. Apple has finally responded to this. I wish they'd done this sooner. They've always registered it as a known bug, but it's not a known bug. Here's how you do it. You can deregister iMessage. There now is a page at self-solve. I didn't even know Apple had this, selfsolve.apple.com. And this is what you can do. If you have your iPhone, you can do it within the iPhone. The issue is more people who've, abandoned the iPhone and are now on Android, and they're missing messages because their iPhone-using friends have them entered into their iPhone as iPhone users, so it uses messages to send the SMS instead of SMS. Now Apple will give you a way to deregister your phone number and say, look.
I've had people that I've sent lots of messages to, and I'm like, wow, they don't like me anymore. They just, and it turns out they weren't getting any of them.
Yeah, they weren't getting them.
Yeah.
Now you can pop the blue bubbles.
I'm still terribly confused by messages. After all these years, I don't know what rules apply that will make sure that I will get a message from one person or not another person. Whenever I register a new device, is it in my best interest to register new email addresses and phone numbers to it, or is it my best interest to say no, only use this put a contact for stuff? And it's whenever people ask me about it, and even when I'm using it myself, I have to go to reference sources to confirm that what I'm guessing is actually true, and what I guess is usually not true.
Is it okay? Well, let's try. Let's have a little. This would be a good game show. iMessages. Does it do this? True or false? I have now, because of continuity, I feel like this is a little bit better than it used to be.
Yep.
I do love it that I can now use messages on my Mac to send what looks like text messages to my iPhone wielding friends. That's nice.
But I think the winners are. I mean, I think the two winners for me are Messenger and Hangouts, because I can go to any web browser.
Hangouts does the same thing, but Hangouts is cross-platform.
And so is Messenger.
Messenger.
What I'm talking about,
AOL?
Facebook Messenger. So
Facebook
Facebook Messenger and Google Hangouts are the two that I use probably the most.
Right. Because they're cross-platform.
And because I can go to any web page, I can go to any phone, I can go to any, it's anything. I've like having something tied up in one OS or one phone number. I'm kind of over that. But those are the two for me that.
So I always, now maybe I'm wrong, but I always, when I use a new iOS or OS 10 device, say, yes, add that to the messages pool, add that email address, add that phone number. It's a very long pool now of phone numbers and email addresses that it's supported. There doesn't seem to be, by the way, any good way to remove it. I guess maybe I can now use this tool to remove old phone numbers. But that seems okay, because now when my phone rings or I get a message, all my devices go, bleh, and I can use any one of them to respond. Is that right?
Or all of them.
Or all of them.
It's a little overwhelming at times.
So that seems, yeah, but that seems okay. Andy, isn't it better now in the age of continuity?
I'd say so, but I still don't have I still don't have that sort of absolute blind trust that I have in, like, let's say, text messaging, which is why, like, I just will not. I will always use that as my preferred method of contact for everything else, because I know that it's a system that everybody has access to. There's one pipe, and it won't necessarily go to every single device that I have, but it will definitely work with this one device if I keep it handy with me. As Alex was saying, the most terrifying thing is when you've been using like Mac A for like 2 days, and your laptop has been in your bag since you got back from wherever, and then finally you pop it out and recharge it, and suddenly lights up with like 100 messages over the past 2 days that did not route to the copy of messages on the other machine. Say, okay, make sure you get here by 3 o'clock, because remember, George Lucas is giving you 20 minutes. He wants to talk to you about some important stuff. Like, yeah, it's like nothing terrifies you as much as people want to get in touch with you, but messages are not getting to you.
Right.
And it's hard because, there's also just like little things both with messages and for some reason I do a lot of tech all over the world. So I use all of these message machines. Like WhatsApp is better than Hangout Messenger or Messages, because it sends, as you're typing, it's sending everything to the other side. And then when you hit done, it just pops it up. And so it's while you're typing. You can
send messages to the other side?
No, WhatsApp is sending to, when you're WhatsApping someone to someone else, the message is being sent as you type it. And then when you say you say send, it actually makes it available to them. That's why it's so fast compared to.
Oh, that's clever.
So when Hangouts and iMessages do it, it hits it and then they start talking. Then they start figuring it out.
That's
which is
very clever.
So it's WhatsApp is a little bit more efficient. That's why they got $19 billion.
Yeah.
I think it turned out to be more, right? Because it was different valuation.
It was $22 billion by the time all was said and done, because the Facebook stock went up.
Yep.
BlackBerry is still crying.
That's more than BlackBerry is worth right now, right? I mean,
like 6 times more than maybe 7.
But I do feel like Apple's missing a little bit of a bet. Wouldn't it be good? And maybe this is a first step, because I tell you, this is not a Steve Jobs type of tool. Steve would never admit that anybody is leaving the iOS universe and going to some other phone. So the fact that, I mean, this is an admission that it says no longer have your iPhone, then you can do this. That seems something that is part of the new Apple, which I appreciate. And let's take the next step. Can't we make messages cross-platform?
Leo, cross-platform and services are two things Apple does not do well. So putting those two together.
I guess you're right.
They tried.
iTunes for Windows is pretty god-awful.
Didn't they used to support like Apple, AOL, Messenger or whatever, and it never really worked?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it never really worked.
A web interface would be nice, though.
And I think
a web interface. There you go.
Yeah, a web interface would be great.
I could use that on my phone. That would be great.
Yes.
At least it would give me access to those messages on if I don't have an iPhone. I think that's fair, or a Mac device.
At least for 2 weeks, because after that they destroy them. But if you get in there anytime in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's interesting. So if you do register, you're never going to get those messages that you missed back, because that's it.
Yeah, it tries to deliver them for 2 weeks and then they're gone, which is why if you ever wipe your phone and put them back, it doesn't download your entire message history. It just starts sort of from that date.
Yeah. Interesting, because Apple is getting into enterprise. That's another big story of the week. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But first, a word from Squarespace. I love Squarespace. It is. I should explain kind of a little bit what Squarespace is, and we'll talk about some of its benefits. It's hosting. The best hosting in the world, never goes down, plus software on top of the hosting to give you the best possible web experience. So for you, and not just for you, really what's more important is for your users. Squarespace 7, the all-new Squarespace 7 is out with lots of great features. And you know what's really nice? If you have an existing Squarespace page, you go to the Settings tab, and you can activate all the new 7 features. A completely redesigned set of creative tools that allow you to do things, for instance, like work on your page WYSIWYG. So as you're changing the design, you're actually seeing it live, which is fabulous. You don't have to toggle anymore between Site Manager and Preview mode. That gives you a really great sense of what you're going to look like. They have instant access to stock photography from Getty. Purchase right from inside the platform. Getty images, $10 each. Instant branded email setup with Google Apps. You can have branded email for your small business automatically when you sign up for that Squarespace account. The templates now for a variety of professions, whether you're a chef, an architect. Check out, if you're a musician, check out the Horizon template. It's kind of pre-done for bands, featuring tour dates, music player, a merch store, all of that built in. They have a fabulous developer platform. If you are a web developer and you use CSS and JavaScript, you can use their incredible tools, including a special editor that has syntax coloring and all that. E-commerce is available on all subscription plans. But the best of all is you can try it now for 2 weeks just by clicking the Get Started button. Just go to squarespace.com, click Get Started, and you'll be working in Squarespace, setting up a page at no cost. You don't even need to give them a credit card. I just feel like this is a no-brainer if you're creating a new website. Even if you're importing from your existing site. They have importers, by the way, for all the blog APIs. This is a much better place. As little as $8 a month when you sign up for a year, you'll also get the domain name for free. And by the way, if you ever want help, they have a spectacular help portal that has not only webinars, a knowledge base, workshops, community answers, a forum, but you can also get email and chat support 24/7 from these great folks in the Squarespace offices. This is not outsourced. These are the people who work on Squarespace. They can help you. Great apps, too, like Portfolio, Note, Metric, and Blog. By the way, Note and Blog now available on Android as well as iOS. The best hosting, the best software to make the best site.
We're in the process of redoing our website because nothing's changed for a while, which is on Squarespace, but I couldn't believe it how much better it's gotten better.
Yeah.
It is so nice.
Go to 7.
Yeah, it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe all this stuff is here. It's really, really awesome.
Squarespace is phenomenal. I want you to go to squarespace.com, check out the pricing, as little as $8 a month. If you do, try it for free, but just click the Get Started button. But if you do decide to buy, 10% off when you use our offer code MacBreak. MacBreak is the offer code at squarespace.com, the place to make your next website. Apple has said it's going enterprise. Remember, they did a deal with IBM. Again, the new Apple. I think we could. There's so many things you could point to, and I think this is great. It has to happen with any company, but I think Tim Cook has really taken Apple to new areas that are very exciting, and enterprise is a very interesting.
And it almost seemed like Apple had ceded enterprise for a long time to Microsoft. Like it was really it was good in enterprise, but it was never really focused on it. This is new for them.
I think part of this also is that with sales of the iPad lagging a little bit, this is an opportunity to find a new market. You got China; they're going toward China, but they also go to enterprise. They've done deals with a lot of companies now. They have they're working with startups like ServiceMax, PlanGrid. These are specifically for enterprise. There's a mobile app. PlanGrid is a mobile app for construction workers to share and view blueprints.
Said, Leo. I mean, they got China Mobile was the big thing everyone wanted, and then how do you keep adding addressable market?
Keep doing it.
They were broad. They were broad in enterprise, but they were never deep. And the IBM thing is trying to get, instead of just having 99% of people trying it or having an enterprise, they want to have every department in every enterprise having many of their devices deployed.
ServiceMax is that a CRM? I'm trying to figure out what ServiceMax. Apparently, they say about 95% of their customers already use Apple devices. ServiceMax is field service, so it's a field repairs service, that kind of thing. So since their customers are already using Apple devices, it only makes sense to get apps on those devices and go deep. IBM apps. How many IBM apps? There's quite a few.
They have good. I mean, the SDK for Apple is really good. The frameworks are really good. They make it easy to deploy things. We were talking about the enterprise certificates before, but part of their power is that an enterprise can just make these apps and distribute it to their workforce. It's a good system.
They're going after HP. They're going after Dell. They're going when it comes to desktops. I mean, we buy Dell for the business side of the business. All of our hosts use Apple. But everybody in our business side of our office, it's just a small enterprise, but it's an enterprise. They want to use Windows. They want to use Dell.
Just don't let them use the webcams.
They want to use, the webcams are terrible.
Horrible.
You know what? The Apple built-in webcams aren't great either.
They're not, but I got to tell you, we test probably 30 or 40 people a week for online stuff. And you can literally, someone just pops up and goes, "So, are you using a Dell?" Like, it just looks like 1950s television.
The good news is you go out and buy a Logitech and instantly you're much better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not expensive. But I have to say the same thing. I have 3 cameras on me at all times at home because I get lonely. And I just can't live without multiple cameras pointed at me at all times. I also have the chat room going at all times. But I can switch from camera to camera, and the built-in display cameras on the Thunderbolt display and the Cinema LED display are terrible compared to the Logitech in the middle.
Right.
I have to say, there's just no, immediately.
Well, last week when I was in DC, that was a Logitech C920.
Looks great.
Yeah, and I think Andy's is a 920, right? Yours?
Yep. I mean, these look so good.
Yeah.
People were saying to me last week, why don't you do whatever Alex is doing for the whole network?
Right.
Not just me. They said you looked better than me.
Boy, thank you. I spend a lot of money on that studio, and I only use it once a month.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
You looked better last week than this week, Alex.
You know who's going to, I think, who's going to give Apple the biggest challenge? It's not HP. It's not Dell. It's not Oracle. It's not SAP. I think it's Microsoft. And maybe Samsung. Samsung is kind of at a par with Apple, kind of trying to move from that mobile space into the enterprise. And they have Knox. They have some stuff that enterprise really likes a lot. But I got to think that it's Microsoft that's really got to be the people you've got to.
Well, they're still the inside. And we can talk about Apple making inroads into enterprise, but Microsoft is still 80-90% of the market. So it's
why do we buy Dells? Excel.
As I'm fond of saying, they're like the water and electric company. It's like they don't make products that are incredibly sexy. They don't make products that let you go in front of a white backdrop and talk about design. But they're there will keep the lights on and keep people healthy day after day after day. And now, boy, they seem to have over the past 5 years, they seem to have found the car keys to something good. After rummaging through the sofa for about 10 years now, because now they're making consumer products that are actually quite nice. I don't know if you've tried the Microsoft Band. The fitness shackle they came out with, the tracking cup, but it's nicely designed. It's not designed to do 100,000 different things. It's designed to be just a really awesome fitness band that also enhances some stuff on your phone. But it's nicely made. It works really great. I know a couple people who are actually fit individuals who are using it and enjoying it a lot. I've just started using their new mobile keyboard. Another very nicely engineered, very nicely put together thing. And these are not things. These are not things and this is the same company that came out with the Zune player, within living memory. And so you're not associating Microsoft with making really good consumer electronics, but they're becoming a pretty decent consumer electronics company.
The Zune was good. It just was way too late. It had no shot, but it was still good. They make good consumer products. They just they never time them right. Or they
it wasn't well. It wasn't good because I still remember trying to get it to work, get it working on an actual like Windows notebook, and it was like an all-day affair. And even then, it just barely sort of worked. It was just
okay. The Zune HD was good. Maybe not the original Zune.
Yeah, by the last generation, they came out with a device that if they had kept it around for another couple of generations, it might have competed very, very well with what Apple was doing at the same price point. That was the first time they'd rolled out their new mobile interface design, which even at the time I thought, oh, this is really nice. This is a very good way to articulate a very complicated set of functions through a very simple screen. So they figured some stuff out.
Yeah, Ben Thompson had a good piece on this though, saying that you make a really good product, you're still, even if it's 80% as good, even if it's better, you're not guaranteed that percentage of the market share, and that seems to be their problem. Is they make wonderful stuff, but they just can't get the market share for it.
Well, latest results from Good Technology's Mobility Index report. These are enterprise numbers. Apple made up 69% of enterprise device activations in Q3. That's up 2 points. Android activation share dropped 2 points to 29%. Windows Phone 1%. So while Microsoft may own the desktop, Apple absolutely owns mobile in enterprise. And this is in
right
enterprise.
now, but that does not include BlackBerry because Good doesn't support BlackBerry.
And I think a lot of this also cuts through, consumers buying low-end Androids as those kind of fill up a lot of those numbers, and you really see what. When companies are making a decision. And I'm kind of curious right now that's just kind of a raw data, but I'm curious why they, pick iOS. Because for a long time, I think enterprise was a little bit resistant to that, to the iOS.
Do you think...
I just saw the story. I forget what company it was, but they ran out and bought, when they saw the data breach, they ran out and bought iPhones and MacBooks for all their executives and called them their secure implementation.
Well, I guess they said right about the same time that Home Depot had that huge hack that turned out to be some kind of Windows flaw that they went out
point of sale.
And bought a whole, like all the executives at Home Depot ended up with iOS and Mac like within a week. It was
AppleCare Enterprise is online now and it has on-site support, which is what enterprises demand. We're not going to pick up our computers and bring them into the Apple Store. So this is AppleCare for Enterprise. There's a website, enterprise-grade AppleCare for IBM Enterprise customers. You get an AppleCare account manager, personal liaison with AppleCare, 1-hour response time for urgent issues, IT-level support available 24/7. AppleCare for Enterprise customers can also replace 10% of damaged iOS devices. So 1 in 10 get to be damaged, and we'll replace them.
They're actually really good at that. I mean, we work with Apple Enterprise.
Do you?
Yeah, we.
I guess you would, wouldn't
you? And the service is amazing. I mean, just what we get from almost any Apple store that we walk into. As soon as they look down, it's one of those things like, I'm in Pixel Core, and then we get a lot of attention because we buy a lot of machines. But you're in enterprise, and you're moving into the enterprise model. So they're definitely, it's something that is a huge priority for them to make sure the enterprise customers are taken. And if you have a company, by the way, and you're buying lots of Macs, you don't have to just go in and talk to retail. You can say, I'm a business customer.
No,
I want to open a business.
We have a business rep.
Exactly. You have a rep. You have, and they're when you want to make a set up a new lease. You don't get a huge
discount, but
no, but we do. Like we have big lease agreements. So we don't buy all our machines. We lease them all, and so they're all and we rev them and everything else. But it's not that you get huge discounts. You get little discounts. But you get great service. You can make phone calls and get things sorted out, and you're not just a customer that's walking in. I mean, everyone gets treated well, but definitely as a business customer,
you get a little bit of
extra.
Because, it's almost just feels like sales.
It's
you get your own salesman. It's nice.
But they do a lot of leg work for us. Like we want to do X, Y, and Z. We had to have tens of computers show up at one time, and the Apple Store in Santa Rosa lifted heaven and earth to
that's nice
to get them to us on time.
Yeah. Let's talk about big boy pants.
Put them on.
We're wearing ours.
I sense a title. Put on the big boy pants.
Put on the big boy pants. The Squiller Memorandum, which is not like the Bourne Identity. It's something different. Although it feels like this should be a novel by Grisham. The Squiller Memorandum was revealed on Friday. The judge did, against Apple's wishes, unseal it and gives us a little bit of an insight, a little bit of a picture into the agreements Apple makes with its suppliers. You remember the story is GT Advanced, which is they were a sapphire furnace maker, They sold sapphire furnaces. Apple lent them almost $500 million to build a plant in Mesa, Arizona with GT furnaces, but with GT running it to make sapphire for a as yet
and these guys
unnamed
hadn't
Apple
been
device.
they hadn't been making sapphire.
They had never done it.
They made the machines that made sapphire.
Right. And of course, remember, most of Apple's suppliers are probably not in the U.S., I would guess. They're mostly in Asia. But I guess the same template is applied to them. Squiller in the memorandum says Apple never really entered into negotiations, telling instead the managers should not waste their time negotiating because Apple doesn't negotiate with suppliers. We don't negotiate with terrorists, and we don't negotiate with suppliers. According to a GT, after the company said, well, wait a minute, we got to, Apple said, look, these are our terms for other Apple suppliers, and you should, quote, put on your big boy pants and accept the agreement.
And by the way, we work with a lot of Fortune 100 companies, and that's a pretty standard thing for. I mean, we won't even talk about Apple being that way, but most agreements that we get, we have the choice of either doing work with them and signing that contract, or we're not going to do any work with them.
Yeah,
you know, that's a pretty
Vader
common
suits
thing.
when they negotiate, Alex?
What?
Are they wearing Darth Vader suits when they negotiate?
No, they just really mean emails about why. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, at the closing meeting, we're going to have to ask that each person bring in one tire from their car and give it to us. I know we don't need it as a part of the deal. We just want to make you know that we can make you do whatever you want.
Right.
We want.
Exactly.
And yeah, I mean, I think that most people would be so happy to get an Apple deal that they'd go, yeah.
There's a lot of companies. There's a lot of carcasses along the road that have made big deals with like these companies, and this is one of them. But I mean,
one of them.
This is a cautionary. You know, we have almost been killed by big contracts. You know, and it is a.
But I guess you can't expect Apple. I mean, should Apple be a kinder, gentler Apple?
No, but
it's okay. You couldn't make the sapphire. It's
but
okay.
if you're a little company, no, not at all.
You're doing a deal with the devil. You're saying, all right, I'm putting the. I mean, that's where Squiller really does need to put on his big boy pants and say, look, Squiller, you're the COO. He's the chief operating officer. You made this deal. If you didn't think you could do it, you shouldn't have made it. And it's like going to Vegas. I'm all in.
Yep. Yeah. And the thing is that you definitely have to accept when you sign these contracts. And the reason we're so particular about our contracts is that when we sign that contract, we assume that they mean everything in it. Like they'll tell you, oh well, we're not going to ever do that. Well, they might. You're talking to one person. You don't know how it's going to turn out sometime later. And so if you think that there's a problem, you need to. As a CEO, it's your job to make the decision that we walk away from business because the contracts don't work. And we say, I can't do that. I can't.
GT should have. So we're just seeing the car wreck that sometimes happens when a company bites off.
But it's hard. I mean, they're offering you $500 million. I mean, as a little company, it's very clear why they did that.
Let me tell you what went wrong, because we know from the memorandum. And we know the first thing we already knew was a $50 million penalty if you breach confidentiality per occurrence. We knew that. That had been out already. No, this is maybe you should have looked twice at this, Mr. Squiller. No manufacturing process can be modified by GT without Apple's prior consent, but GT must immediately implement any of Apple's suggestions.
That's kind of giving up your company. You're like wondering why Apple doesn't just buy you and build the stuff themselves at that point. I mean, that's worse.
GT must fulfill any purchase order placed by Apple on the date Apple picks, or you have to buy substitute goods at your own expense.
Yes.
So if you don't have the Sapphire the day we want it, you better give us some. In addition, the plant was built without input from GT.
That I don't understand. I mean, like this. Here's the thing: is that I get that Apple pushes a hard bargain, but this was not a smart move.
Yeah. This is a really hard bargain. The plant was built, for instance, without backup power generators because Apple deemed them too expensive. But now remember, if GT can't deliver on date and time, then, so if the power goes out, they're screwed. Apple also embedded its own employees at the Mesa plant who, quote, assumed a level of authority, end quote, and had to be reminded not to order GT employees around. So you're right. They should have just bought the thing.
I mean, if you're going to have that much control, nobody has enough control to make it actually work.
Squiller said Apple initially wanted to purchase the Sapphire furnaces from GT, but ended up offering this different deal, a new structure where GT borrowed money from Apple. Remember, this isn't a gift. Borrowed money from Apple to purchase the furnace components in order to supply Apple with the Sapphire crystal. Apple also prohibited GT from doing business with other manufacturers or suppliers working in consumer electronics. They have an exclusive. Squiller called Apple's tactics a classic bait-and-switch strategy and described the final agreement as onerous and massively one-sided. On the other hand, you signed the deal, Squiller.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Making things worse for GT if Apple decided not to use sapphire crystal in its upcoming products, which they, in fact, did. GT would be required to repay the loan fully in cash. And so this is all unsealed as part of a settlement in which Apple agreed that GT could sell the furnaces and whatever they got would be sufficient to settle the debt with Apple. In other words, Apple said, all right, we're not going to get all our money back.
Right.
So, in fact, I think Apple, you could make the argument that Apple did the right thing.
I mean, both of them were throwing a long bomb. Both of them wanted a cutting-edge technology. GT wanted the big contract. Apple wanted to have this new thing that nobody else has. And they both took a big risk. And I think
really, they should put their big boy pants on. Not Apple, but GT. Look, you guys made a long bet and you lost.
Yeah, right.
And there's no time. This is not the time to start saying, well, it was an unfair deal. I didn't like
the bet.
Play the
Kenny Loggins music, Leo. Play the Kenny Loggins music.
Which one?
Sorry, the Kenny Rogers. Kenny Rogers music.
Oh, you got to know when to hold them.
But you can see how
when to fold them.
Now, saying all of that, you can see that the tactical thing to do is exactly what GT did, which is declare bankruptcy. I mean, there was no way they're going to be able to do anything else. And so while it sounds like they're complaining now, I think more of it is they're just making the legal argument that says we can't pay that.
I think Apple could reasonably complain, saying, "Look."
But I mean,
we're getting pennies back on our investment.
But I'm saying we can all complain, but what we're watching here is legal.
This is how it happens.
This is legal.
You're saying that as the son of a litigator.
I'm just saying that when you're not going to be able to make all the bills, you're going to have to declare bankruptcy, and in that, you're going to say these are the things that happened, and these are the things. Whether you were right or wrong, the bottom line is you're in a position where, and the only way for them to leverage themselves out of it was,
and it's a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is essentially reorganization saying to creditors.
Right.
We can't give you all the money back.
Apple.
Yeah. It was essentially
just the stock sale that was interesting before the.
Yeah. Okay. So the CEO of GT. The day before Apple's iPhone announcement.
It's
no. It was the day before the Apple announcement.
A month before the bankruptcy announcement.
Sold like $100 million of stock. So
was it that much?
I can't remember.
It was that much.
Shall I look it up?
It was 160,000.
CEO stock sale.
I think it was $160,000 of stock.
He sold, you're right, $160,000 in stock. He said it was part of an ongoing stock dump. I've been dumping the stock for years. But the fact that it was the day before the announcement, and the announcement at this point he knew was not going to include sapphire screens.
Hopefully he was doing that regularly, because otherwise that's a...
Well, I'm sure if there's any irregularities here that the SEC
that he'll end up in jail.
Will investigate.
Or with a big fine.
He says it was part of a prearranged plan that was established in March. Probably,
a lot of CEOs do that. I mean, and most of CEOs of that size, a lot of CEOs will set up a payment like every month or every week or even every day.
Maybe that's what it was. If you thought
usually
that
you want to sell the day after the Apple event.
I would say in most cases you would sell after a big announcement involving your product, unless you knew.
Well, and again, a lot of CEOs will do it regularly, all the time, specifically not to show any irregularities.
We were talking about Apple's enterprise ambitions, but of course Microsoft has some as well, and I think this is no surprise. They've announced that they're going to make Office for iPad and iPhone free, Android too. In the past, you've had to have an Office 365 subscription to use Office. You could always use it as a read-only tool, Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. Now you can edit with them. You can effectively use almost all of their features for free. They also announced
all the simple stuff.
All the simple stuff, yeah. You can interestingly, some of the high-end enterprise stuff. They also announced a strategic partnership with the Dropbox, so that you don't just have to use OneBox or OneDrive. You can use Dropbox to store your documents without paying Microsoft anything at all. Is this Microsoft's way a shot across the bow to Apple?
No, Apple would love to think that they're a threat to anybody's Office suite. This really is a way to blunt Google Docs, because remember that I think there are two advantages to having like students and early professionals using your product. One is that if you can get them to buy for $99, okay, that's $99 you didn't have. What you really want is for them to really learn how to use this product, and for that to be the tool that they want to use for the rest of their careers. And I think that Apple I think that Microsoft is a little bit more concerned that with more people who are using Google Docs, that makes it a lot easier for the next generation of IT people and the next generation of people who are setting up the infrastructure for a company to say, you know what, we're going to standardize on Google Docs and not on Microsoft Office. And given the amount of money they make off of enterprise versus the amount of money they make off of students and off of just casual users, this is just like easy money. It seemed like an easy decision to say, let's give up a small amount of money with the idea that this is going to pay off big time long term by making our entire ecosystem a lot more valuable.
Yeah. As we start getting new people into the company, it is far more likely that they're going to know Google Docs at this point than Microsoft or Pages. We have to usually make them use numbers.
Does anybody use Pages?
Yeah. No, I don't. There is no bigger fan in any group of people of Apple than me. The only Apple iWork app that I use is Keynote.
Yeah, and Keynote's awesome.
And yeah, because and
you use it specifically as an antidote to PowerPoint.
Yeah, but the thing about the complication there is that I've been trying to use less of the flashier features. As it seems as though the more content I actually have, the less I need to say, what if I do a magic move to have this text swap positions and then morph from one picture to another? It would not be that difficult for me to switch to PowerPoint. And if I worked in an office where I had to collaborate with other people and they said, oh, well, it's okay if you want to develop something in Keynote, but at some point you're going to have to convert this to PowerPoint, I would gripe for maybe 20 minutes, but I don't think I'd have a big trouble making that that transition.
We work in a lot of where we're either running presentations for folks in big halls or we're working with people, and pretty much the thing that you see in every professional, like high-end presentation company, that's doing the PowerPoint type stuff is Keynote. I mean, everybody, like if they're really doing a presentation and they're serious about it, the next step after Keynote for most presentation companies, most like corporate presentation companies, is what's called a Spider or an Encore system, which is an $80,000 piece of hardware. So, before that, they're using when you get used to really pushing Keynote, I think that when you go back to PowerPoint, then definitely to whatever that thing is, that the presentation thing that Google does, they're just very rough compared to as far as the speed at which you can put things together and how quickly you can put something together that looks nice. I think Keynote is definitely the best thing that they have. I think that Numbers is not actually good at heavy-duty spreadsheets, but when it comes to organizing stuff, doing basic budgets, that kind of thing, it's just much faster, I think, than
same.
And I worked in Excel for a long time, and I don't use the Google one at all. I mean, I do, I always save it out to it, like at the last step to hand it off to a client, but it's horrible.
I cut and paste into Google Docs a lot, but I use Keynote and Numbers. I don't use Pages. I use BB Edit mostly, but I'll cut and paste into Google Docs when I have to.
And we're in Google Docs every day. I mean, the presentation, I don't even know how we could run our business without it at this point. Without Google Docs. So it's just certain apps that I don't like. But
so Microsoft isn't really threatened then by the alternatives. This is just.
Well, I think they're definitely threatened by Google. I mean,
except Google.
Yeah.
I think they understand that you need to have a really superlative free product.
Yeah.
And so I think this was an easy decision for them to make.
But I think it's not just Google. I think there's so many smaller apps now. Like if you look at iOS's AI Writer, and there's just tons of apps that can do basic presentations, that can do basic writing, and it's the sum of all those things. And I used this analogy before, and it's terrible, but I still think it's apt. Like if you're in a mixed martial arts fight and you're being overwhelmed, you can just cover up and try and weather it, or you can cover up and drop down and try to take the person down and change the fight. And it's not clear which one Microsoft is doing, but they're definitely sort of reacting to the market and covering up a little bit. Microsoft is a company that Bill Gates stood up there and proudly says, you're stealing my software. They made their billions selling software, and now they're giving away Office for free, and that is an enormous sea change.
I agree.
And it is responsive, but it is a change.
They're not giving away Office for free. They're giving away a mobile version of Office that doesn't have the full fighting power of this fully armed and operational battle station known as Microsoft Office.
But
it would be different if they.
It has as much as Google Docs does, doesn't it?
I would say it's certainly competitive with certainly competitive with Google Docs. I think
you're not going to give away more, or maybe not much more capability anyway than the competitor.
I think that what this must say is that they've looked at how availability of Microsoft Office for iOS has affected upticks of Office 365 subscriptions. They figured out that people are not subscribing to Office 365 specifically to get this product, so therefore we may as well use this to our advantage differently. as Rene says, I'll hijack your analogy to change the fight. So we will now use this as a promotional thing to enhance the value of Office 365, the thing that we really, really do want to sell on other platforms.
But it does put people's minds that Office is free. Like, it's not always free. It's not free on the desktop. It's not free in enterprise, but it does start putting that idea out there. And as someone who wants to pay money to get great mobile software, it's just one more arrow in the heart of paid mobile software.
But that ship already sailed on. I mean, Apple already torpedoed third-party development of really good productivity software by giving away iWork for free. If they also kind of cut off the legs of that beast by making it really, really difficult to do a superlative text editor with actual inline editing and stuff like that. If you're not an Apple brand word processor, so I feel as though that ship had already sailed. I don't think that's as significant as it might be on other platforms.
Google Drive, not to be left behind, is off letting you open and save files using other apps, gets Touch ID and video downloading. Big upgrades for Google Drive as well. I think this is a great battle for consumers.
Well, and it's heating up. I mean, I think all of these companies are spending. I mean, I think, Apple, Microsoft, I mean, we're seeing behind the scenes, we're seeing this huge push on all three companies to go after this market, and so they're all fighting. This is definitely not anything that they're just kind of doodling with. None of these are hobbies for any of these companies.
As a sanity check, are they all making software for iOS now, and none of them are making software for Windows?
Isn't that funny?
Including Microsoft.
But you can't get Microsoft Office on Windows Phone.
Well, Google just has some sort of thing against Microsoft.
They
against
will not do
Windows
Phone software.
They just it's not even a thing where they vote. Does this make sense for us month to month?
No.
It is they have taken the stand that it does not make it. We're not going to support Windows Phone when they don't have like their two most important products available for it. Products that would be very, very simple to adapt to Windows Phone. It's like, yeah, they've got something. There's something here on some whiteboard that says this is the third rail. Do not even talk to Sergey about this. Microsoft burned his daddy's farm to the ground when he was a little kid, and now this is why he stalks Justice by night as a Caped Crusader.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things that keeps me off Windows Phone because I'm so invested in the Google universe that the lack of Google apps kills me. YouTube was the bellwether. And the fight that Microsoft and Google had over the YouTube app. YouTube got mad at Microsoft because they allowed you to download videos from YouTube, and Microsoft said, all right, well, you do it, and Google said, well, no, and then finally, really, the YouTube app on Windows Phone, which I think Microsoft created, is basically the web page.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Google has never done a YouTube app. I mean, you don't do a YouTube app on a phone. You're pretty much saying there's something going on there. We don't want to.
Mike Shoe has a YouTube app now.
I know.
Everyone but Windows Phone.
Well, but I think that Microsoft right now is 1% too of the market. So it's a.
But they're paid by eyeball. That's 1% of the eyeballs they're just giving away.
Yeah, I think Google can. Yeah, you could say that for a lot of companies. Okay, we're not going to do a Windows Phone version. Google has enough engineers they could do a Windows Phone.
They could, but it's 1% with a company that has been not following the rules.
So you think it's a purely economic decision? No, it feels like it's more than that.
I think it's a combination.
Yeah,
they're settling family business.
If Microsoft was 15%,
if they were 20%, they might do it.
Exactly, they would definitely do it at 15 or 20% of the market. At 1%, yeah, exactly. At 1% of the market, Microsoft doesn't have the leverage. They need to be nice,
right?
That's what they didn't quite.
I think I think you're right, but let's also acknowledge the fact that when one of their own comes up with this idea of what if we had independently flying hot air balloons that simply fly over the landscape and provide free Wi-Fi.
Yes,
they got money to build those.
No, it's not that they don't have the money, but Microsoft doesn't have any leverage.
But when it comes down to we could extend the usefulness of Google apps and services to Windows Phone. Doesn't matter that we're talking about a few million users as opposed to hundreds of millions of users. They don't have time or priority for that. I think that's a significant data point. That's all I'm saying.
But I think that it's not that they don't have the economic that they would make more money with it. It's just that Microsoft doesn't have any leverage.
I'm saying that Google has the ability to pursue any project they want to do. They have the time, they have the money, they have the resources. I think the most important thing is they just do not have the interest in supporting Windows Phone. Not even the infinitesimal time that they had. I wonder if someone said I want to make this my personal project. I'm going to you're saying you'll let me take time off to do any project. I want to port YouTube to Windows Phone. I wonder what kind of meetings there would be as a result of that.
But I think Microsoft, part of this is that Microsoft decided they wanted theirs to do a whole bunch of things that Google doesn't want it to do. And so the thing is that Microsoft obviously didn't read the Art of War, which says never fight a battle uphill. You wait until you're up in the top of the hill before you start fighting those battles, and they just fought it too early.
Of the wind.
You can lead a pundit to Surface, but you can't make them click. CNN made a deal with Microsoft to use Surface tablets for its midterm election coverage. But at least for some of the pundits, they really merely were used as an iPad stand. Here's one pundit, thanks to Adam UCF, who got this grab. She looks happy. That's because she's not using a Surface. She's using an iPad. Here's another analyst.
You're talking about. Here's the thing: is you're talking about people on a live broadcast in front of millions of people and asking them to learn how to do something new. That was nuts. It was, and Microsoft's got the same problem on the NFL, where they kept on handing people. They kept on handing all these coaches, all of their tablets, and the coaches still want to just use their iPads.
Right.
It's not smart embedding.
What Microsoft paid for was exactly what it got, which was a bunch of Surfaces lined up on the table.
Right.
What happens behind the Surface stays behind the Surface.
And I feel like anything that they thought that they were going to buy into this got lost with these behind-the-scenes photos.
Well, no, for the Apple fanboys, we all knew, but I don't think anybody else knew.
Right. Well, they do now.
Most of America thought they were using.
It is awkward.
Most of America went, what are they using?
Right.
I think more to the point, most of the people who are not like in the fan community were saying, well, of course, I often have a computer in front of me and a phone in front of me as well. This is how I do things. It's only like those of us in the fan community, oh, total fail, losers. You see, they couldn't use the Microsoft Surface. Woo! It's like, but what do you mean to talk about? I'm doing a podcast. I've got two computers in front of me right now, and one of them is not. Yeah. One of them is not my MacBook.
No, exactly.
Is it a fail for my MacBook that I happen to have an Android device next to me right now to keep up on something else?
Right. No, it's exactly the case.
We're very small, petty people sometimes. That's all I'm saying.
It doesn't look natural the way they're doing it. It would behoove them to have someone who's good at doing sort of set decoration going in there and judiciously placing surfaces so that you can see them, but they're not obnoxiously in your face.
I think they should have put a logo on them because I think the only people who knew those were Surfaces are the same people who would note that the people are using iPads behind them.
Yeah. The other difficulty is that they should have, if they were really being smart about this, they would have made them different colors. They would have put cases on some of them. They really looked like the set designer broke out a box of these that were shipped from Microsoft and put them up there like place settings.
Yep. Without much commitment to the whole
And it's funny, on CBS, they always use these Microsoft computers that I've never seen. They have like Windows in the back instead of the Mac logo, and they shine through them.
There has never been a Microsoft or Windows computer with the Windows logo where the Apple logo is on Apple computers. But that's what you'll see almost always on TV, and that's why, because then you know what it is. Otherwise...
And you can always tell if you see one that looks exactly like a Mac, but it's perfectly silver. You're like, somebody didn't pay for that.
Or there's a Windows logo over it.
Some producer
is mad. The Big Bang Theory, Raj has put a round sticker exactly on the cutout portion of the Apple logo, so it's still an Apple logo, but you can't see the little leaf on it. I wonder why he decided to put it exactly there.
Yeah. Raj wants to get paid.
Yeah. Same thing happened in the NFL. Finally, Fitbit has been dropped from the Apple online store, another indicator that Apple may someday release a watch.
Crazy. No. That's never going to happen. Never.
Crazy.
Oh, wait.
They kept all the other fitness bands, though. I mean, that's why I wish these people would look into these stories more. I mean, if it was just because they had a band, they could drop Jawbone, they could drop everyone else as a band.
Fitbit has already said it has no plans to integrate with HealthKit.
There you go.
Fitbit has its own software, which is quite good.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense because Apple doesn't want these customers coming back and saying, "Hey, I can't make this work with the health app on my iPhone."
Right.
So yeah, it's easy to think that they're trying to be strategic here, but in fact, it's like how much stress do we want to invite into our lives, and how can we avoid it?
Yeah, both the Jawbone Up and the new Up 24 support HealthKit. The Nike Fuel Band does. YThings, I use YThings stuff. They're HealthKit compatible as well. In fact, YThings tweeted, "We believe your data is your own and that you can do what you want with it. Welcome to the free world. Enjoy. Hashtag HealthKit." Which is a little hard to understand, but I think with some explanation, it makes sense. So, yeah, I think that's probably why it doesn't work with HealthKit. Well, we're not going to carry it.
They don't have to carry everything. Walmart doesn't carry everything. It's the store buyer's decision.
Right. Fitbit CEO said, as the #1 selling connected device with 69% year-to-date market share, Fitbit is sold in 46 countries, 37,000 retail stores. Blah, blah, blah. You can always go to Amazon to get it. I like Fitbits. I'm actually very interested in the new job on Up, but I'm not buying anything new until I see the iWatch, the Apple Watch.
Which is why they announced it.
Exactly.
Way ahead of time.
Way ahead of time. Let's take a break, then we'll come back with your picks of the week. Are you ready, gentlemen?
Ready.
Yeah. Our show today brought to you by Personal Capital. Personal Capital is such a great choice. I am sure, you know, when the Android Wear came out, Personal Capital immediately made its software available on the Android Wear. I would be shocked if they don't do exactly the same with the Apple Watch. What is Personal Capital? It is a great place to go to find out what's going on with your money, to plan for your future, your investments. Personal Capital is free. It's secure. It'll just take you a minute to get in your accounts and your assets. You'll see them on a single screen on your computer, your phone, your tablet, real-time intuitive graphs. It'll tell you what you're overpaying in fees, how to reduce those fees, how to rebalance your 401k. If you don't know what that means, you need it. You can even get tailored advice on optimizing your investment. Personal Capital. Bring Wall Street to your street. It'll just take a minute, and as I said, absolutely free. I've been using it for 2 years now, and I'm very glad. You could do budgeting with it and lots of stuff, but really the main focus, I think, at least for me, I guess because I'm getting on, is planning for your future so that you have enough money to retire on. If you're waiting, if you're hoping that the government will give, I can't even say this with a straight face, will take care of you in your old age, you better get Personal Capital. PersonalCapital.com/MacBreak. Make better investment decisions. Free, secure, easy. PersonalCapital.com/MacBreak. Time for our picks of the week. Let's try Rene. Ritchie, your pick today.
My pick is Tapbots makes these cute little apps for, I call them cute as maybe doing them a disservice, but they are cute. So they make Tweetbot most famously for both iOS and
must use
app. And they made CalcBot for iOS for a while. They haven't done much work on it lately, but they have just released CalcBot for the Mac. It's just as you'd imagine a Tapbots app would be. It's got great sound, great animation. It's very simple. It does just calculations and currency conversions, but it does it very, very well. It has some interesting concepts. For example, instead of memory, it has favoriting, and because everyone's used to social networks now and favoriting things, so you can favorite results of your calculations or results of your conversions, and it just sits there. It's not a widget because they don't believe that widget space is a good place to put a calculator, even on the Mac. So it is an actual full OS X application, but it's small, it's compact. You can hide the tape, you can turn it into a scientific calculator, and it sort of sits there and just does its job when you want it to, and it does it very, very elegantly and very well.
You can also see, this is to me very useful, you could see the whole expression that generated the number, because you know when you're entering a long list of numbers, even just adding them, did I get that one? To be able to see the whole process and then the result is really, really, I think, hard to believe, but that's really useful. Why should you pay $5 for a calculator when you already got one? That's why.
Because it's a good experience, and you know that comes up over and over again. It's the same reason I pay for Tweetbot, because I'm sitting there 8 hours a day using it every day, and it's fractions of a penny. And I was on the beta test for this. I've been using it for a while. It's just if you don't need one of those really fancy full-blown RPN or something calculators, this will suit you very, very well. Yeah,
pCalc would be the one if you need RPN or you need scientific. Yes. pCalc is a great choice. So you get two choices: CalcBot or pCalc.
And some people like Solver, which does it really differently. They try to reimagine. Yeah. It's not really a calculator. It does it sort of like because some people don't believe that you should take a regular calculator and just extrapolate that.
It's not digital native. Yeah.
Yeah. So Solver does it differently if you're looking for something totally different.
That's spelled S-O-L.
S-O-U-L-V-E-R.
Like Sol.
Yes.
Solver.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought that. That's expensive though. It's like $12. Yeah. But it does kind of make more sense. It's like a notebook where you would write your calculations.
Yeah, it's almost like word processing your calculations.
Yeah. Yeah, it does make sense because we don't have buttons. It's a screen.
Yeah.
Alex, Lindsay, you pick.
I have one pick and one unpick.
Okay.
So my first pick is Wirecast 6.0 just came out. A lot of great new features. If you haven't used Wirecast, it's pretty much in my opinion, like we do a lot of live streaming. And this is for live streaming. And if you're corporate, education, that type of thing, this is really a great tool for you. There's really you can start with a Hangout on Air and do a live stream pretty easily. After that, you start moving to Wirecast. This gives you the ability to play back videos, do lower thirds. Now they've added social media feeds, so you can literally be pulling in tweets into your into your show that you're putting together.
That's weird. Really?
Yeah, which is a big part of like when you're doing live shows. Like, hey, use this hashtag. Well, you can now be searching that hashtag and then putting it into the directly into it. It's now 64-bit. It's and it's just a great. It's that next step up. $9.95 for the Pro version, $4.95 for the base version. So it's not it's not a $50 app or $10 app, but it does a lot of stuff. And this is where we started. I mean, this is really we still do this is what I use at home. So like I have elementals that we use for a lot of our big stuff. But what I use when I'm doing my own personal little live streams, Ask Alex's and all the other stuff, is actually Wirecast, because it's just got a whole bunch of things that I can do on my own really quickly, because I can edit between shots. The one thing is it's kind of virtual. You can actually, if you can get four cameras into your Mac through a breakout box or whatever, you got 4 cameras, you can get 8 in. It'll see 8.
Wow.
And, yeah, I mean, it'll just so you can do a lot.
So this is like a TriCaster in software, really.
It can be, yeah, absolutely. It's not as dedicated. I mean, because you're using typically a computer that you're doing a lot of other things with. It doesn't have a control surface the way that the TriCaster has.
But for beginning video podcasters,
absolutely. I think that when you want more than the HOA and you want to start adding a lot of stuff and adding your lower thirds and your graphics, playback, bugs. You can do like the picture-in-picture where you have one picture that's kind of turned in 3D and another picture down below, and
you
all
can
of those
use
things.
your iPhone or your iPad as a source.
You can
over Wi-Fi.
Over Wi-Fi.
That is wild.
Or a tear deck.
I think this is how I'm going to do my show when I retire.
Yeah, it's a great little.
Just out of my house.
Yeah, it's a really great really great application.
Not cheap, $500.
Yeah, or 1,000 and
or more,
or more if you really want to. $495. Yeah, exactly.
For the Pro version. Yeah.
So anyway, but that it's if you're thinking about how do I go next, I highly recommend it. And then the next step after that is looking at a TriCaster, and then after that it's like elementals,
Grass Valley,
elementals and big stuff. But the
Blackmagic has some switchers that are probably pretty affordable too.
I got a couple of those.
What do you think?
Well, but Blackmagic has the switcher, but you're still going to have to stream it with something.
Right.
So
this
the thing
does all
is
the streaming,
and it does the graphics. So like if you want to play back a video or do a replay or do all those other things that those are things that the Blackmagic won't do on its own.
Are there any like solo video podcasters like just sitting in their house using this kind of thing and doing like amazing shows out of their basement?
We used it for our stuff for a long time.
Did you?
The only reason we stopped is because whenever it crashed, we lost the video, which was hard.
Which now I think that they because you were using it to record it as well.
Yes.
Right.
$495, not
sorry.
$4.95.
That's
it's 2/3 of an Alex.
Exactly. So
also $995 for the Pro version, but then there's the add-ins that can add up as well. I mean, you could spend a lot of money.
And when you think about like a Teradek Cube, being able to see it in Wirecast means that you can have it anywhere on your corporate network, going back to the receiver, or not even going to the receiver, you just have a transmitter and it will see that feed. So there's a lot of...
Brushwood has always used Wirecast.
Is it or does he... I thought he used VidBlaster.
No, he uses VidBlaster?
VidBlaster, yeah. Brian Brushwood uses VidBlaster.
Well, what do we use? Because we also use the software on top of what we're doing. Is it Wirecast?
Before we had the Elemental, we were streaming with Wirecast.
Now we're doing it with the hardware.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway. I see Crane Cam. Thank you. Oh, wait a minute. You had a disc recommendation.
I'm getting rid of my 6 Plus.
Your phone, the giant phone, you don't like it?
No, I can't deal with it. So I'm just letting people keep on asking me what I got.
So what'd you get instead?
I'm gonna get the 6. I can't. The problem is that it doesn't fit in a bunch of my pockets.
It's not that for me. It's that there's not enough that takes advantage of the real estate.
I just feel like I love when I work out to have a bigger screen when I'm watching little movies or whatever. But at the same time, I was just like, I'd rather just go back to my iPad Mini and go back to the 6. The 6 Plus is just what happened was it was changing my behavior because it wasn't fitting some of my pockets.
Yeah.
So I was putting it in my outer pocket, and then I wasn't getting calls because it never rings. And because I don't let my phones ring because I'm on air all the time. And so
you weren't feeling the vibe, man.
I was not feeling the vibe
because it was in the wrong pocket.
I was not feeling the vibe, dude. So if someone asks, people have been asking, and I'm going back to 6. I'm gonna get a 6 and figure out what to do with 6 Plus. Someone else in the company will.
Rene, are more apps now taking advantage of the real estate, or is it just big?
It's a two-pronged problem, and I still don't understand fully why. But the smaller, more independent apps are updating much faster, and they're doing the split view controllers, and they're doing the special views. The large apps, the apps that you think like from the big companies, they're not adding that stuff at all very quickly.
So then, to me, it looks like you don't get more real estate. You just get a bigger things.
You get a bigger, you get a more accessible app.
Which to me is not the reason for a big screen. I want to get more stuff on that screen.
Right.
And the other problem is that Apple doesn't let developers individually target specific devices. So if they want to do something completely outlandish, like for example, I would love to see Paper by 53 on the iPhone 6 Plus, but they can't not do it for the other iPhones then. So I mean, it's a little bit of a there's some policy and some problems there.
Andy, okay, so a disrecommendation. We've gone back to the iPhone 6 and a recommendation. Telestream's Wirecast 6.0 now out. Now let's go over to Crane Cam 3000, the future of video podcasting.
Thank you very much. Actually, I have two recommendations. For a second there, I thought that Rene was going to scoop my calculator recommendation. My recommendation is the Craig 454 digital calculator.
They've stuck with the button metaphor, I see.
It's a little bit, really, but it is sort of a fake leather sort of a type here, but it's got 4 functions, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, and floating point arithmetic. And also, it can take notes so long as the note you want to take is the word boobies or shell oil or anything else that can be done by holding the display upside down. So a little bit hard to come by. There, you gotta also. It's a bit of a handful. So if you don't like the 6 Plus, you're probably not going to be. But if the 6 Plus came with like a carrying strap, maybe it would be a little bit more useful. It's also hysterically funny because there's actually a metal plate on the back of it that explains like how to use all of the registers on the back of it.
That's what you want.
And this is the sort of thing that I happen to have on a shelf in the office somewhere.
It's got the manual built in.
Exactly. So here's the actual pick of the week, which is Logitech's Keys to Go ultra portable standalone keyboard. I really have been doing like deep dive into pretty much every kind of keyboard that you can get out there, and this is I'm starting to get attracted to the ones that just have one really interesting and useful ability about it. And the thing about this is that you think that it's a chiclet keyboard, but what it is it's a ultra thin mechanical keyboard that's covered in like its own rubberized skin. So you could like conceivably like spill seltzer all over it, like that, and
it's like a Ronco ad.
Exactly. And unfortunately,
oh my God, I can't believe
how much
doing
we pay
that.
for it now.
Yeah. And because
can you drink it from the keyboard?
Exactly, drinking from the keyboard of a $500 a night Bluetooth device. So that's not going to create any problems for you whatsoever.
Can you eat sushi off of it?
Exactly. Well, it's also you see there's just like Alton Brown says, you want to get things that can be like multitaskers, and so this will not only like be the keyboard you travel with, but like you're in the hotel room, like you need something to set your drink down so it doesn't create like a ring on whatever. This will also like work as a coaster. And why don't I just wipe it off on my? There you go. Unfortunately, I wore a flannel shirt, so
now a damp flannel shirt.
But the idea is that it's cool. super thin. The battery lasts for like months on a single charge. It has all the function keys for iPad and iOS sort of stuff, and it's so thin and it's so like flexible that you wouldn't necessarily attach it to like an iPad, but if you wanted to carry it around like under your arm, you can easily put it inside here, close the cover over it, and you have like one nice little compact package. I'm not sure if that's the ideal way to carry this around. If you're kind of worried about, if you're overstuffing a bag, I don't think you'd want this crushing into the screen. But as one like little compact thing to carry around, this works just fine. Plus, remember you have that easel stand here, so you don't have to worry about propping it up on anything. It's not too expensive. So, but we talk a lot about this sort of stuff as relevant to like iPads, but let's also not forget that you also have the Apple TV that could use Bluetooth. You might have even your Mac Mini some places being used as a server. You want something that you can have in the living room. It doesn't matter if you're eating pizza and you just need to like do a search for YouTube to find something you want, and you got like pizza sauce like all over this thing. That's okay. You can just hose it down. It'll work just fine. Is it absolutely the greatest mobile keyboard in the world? I certainly wouldn't be using it. I certainly wouldn't be recommending it as the keyboard you should get if you need to travel a lot and do a lot of writing on your phone or on your iPad, because the keyboard is certainly very useful, but you can't get your full speed out of it. But as something that you need to be able to kick around, you need something. Let's say you need something that can be damaged, that can get greased up and wet and all that sort of stuff. Not only that, but you want to always have a keyboard inside your laptop bag or inside your accessory bag. This is a good thing to toss in there because it's just going to stay there forever, and it's perfectly useful for its intended use. It's $70, which is not a whole lot of money to spend on a keyboard like that, and available in an array of fashionable colors.
You guys are always so expensive for me.
This looks good. I have no use for it, but I'm going to buy it anyway because
I
can eat sushi off of it.
Exactly.
You guys live like frat brothers. You still got pizza and sushi on your coffee table.
We're living the dream. Seltzer party. And I got a third of a tub of hummus dip that I'm going to get into right after this show. YOLO.
Do you want to do your other pick, the They Might Be Giants fan club?
Yeah, exactly. I want to make this quick. If you're, I'm a They Might Be Giants fan. I love the way this for $98 for next year you get to join the instant fan club, but I want you to enjoy the experience of like this just like it is just like a really good infomercial because you scroll down and you start seeing for $98 you get 52 songs. They're going to release a song every single week. Well, that's interesting. That'd be cool. Like every Tuesday I get a song. Let's keep scrolling. Oh, and 2 tickets to an upcoming concert. Well, that's good because I would like to see it. And a CD. Wow, I'd like to get that. Oh, and another CD. Oh, and a third CD. Yeah, you know what? I really think I should buy this. Oh, and I get a T-shirt, and I also get a DVD of and I get free airplanes. And somewhere like 1/3 of the way through this, it's like I think I want to spend $98. This seems like a very very attractive package of things to get for $98. And if you keep on going, you can get it on vinyl, Flood on vinyl. You can even spend less money for only $40. I think you can get just the song a week. This is, it's great when you feel as though your lifelong fandom of a band is repaid in the form of that band continuing to be awesome in brand new ways as you age alongside with them. So they're not the sort of band that would say, you know what, we're going to try to make you buy a $500 music player just so we can sell you $30 copies of our albums again. They want to give back. See, that's what I'm getting at.
That's awesome.
I don't know if that's relevant, but
love those guys. Yeah. Back in the screensavers days, they wanted to remember they've always had dial a song, but it used to be on a dumb old answering machine. They said we wish we could put it on a computer and we could change the MP3s and stuff. And I coded up for them on a Linux box, cheap Linux box. I wrote a bash script that they could just insert a CD and it would add it to the dial-a-song playlist. And I don't know if they're still using it, but it was kind of cool. I answered the phone. It had like a US Robotics voice modem on it, so it would pick up the phone. I doubt they're still using it.
I remember asking, we interviewed him
Love John
in 1991, I think, and asked him when Flood came out, and asked them why their lyrics were so absurd. And they're like, well, they're not absurd if you understand what we're saying. I was like, okay, never mind.
They are not absurd.
Yeah, exactly.
We had them on the screensavers quite a few times.
Flood's one of the best albums ever.
Flood is the one?
Exactly. That's my favorite album. My favorite They Might Be Giants album.
I should give them the $100 because that is a lot of great stuff for that.
That's a lot of entertainment for $98. Yeah. That's what really attracts me is the idea of like every Tuesday morning I will get an email with a brand new They Might Be Giants song. That seems like a great way to spend 2015.
My pick, you know that I have misgivings about Kickstarter. I've bought so many things, never received them. But there's one thing from Kickstarter that I was very excited. In fact, it was on this show. I think somebody, maybe you, told me, oh, the Pono player is now on Kickstarter. The very same day, I immediately went over and plunked down my donation, my contribution. They raised, with 30 days, they were looking for $800,000. They raised $6.2 million. This is Neil Young's project to make a portable player, not exactly an iPod, but a portable player that could play back high-res music in high quality using very high-end digital to analog converters and so forth. April 15th of this year, they funded, and here, lo and behold, we are November 11th. They're only a few weeks late. They said they'd have it by October. My Pono player has arrived. Ooh. Shiny. I haven't listened to it, so I'm not giving you a review yet, but maybe the review is it's a little bigger than I expected.
You don't want to put that in a back pocket because if you fall down, that's going to hurt a lot.
This is more for the desk, and look, it's got Neil Young. In fact, if I put it on my desk facing out, it might look like I'm Neil Young.
Yeah. Everybody's Neil Young now.
The Pono player is out, and actually my pick is something you can get right now, which is the Pono software player. I'm kind of impressed with. This is maybe what iTunes should have been. As soon as you install it, and you can get it for free right now. It does expire, like these are beta versions, so you're getting an early version of it. And yes, it does have quite a few weird bugs. But one of the things I really liked about it will, of course, on your Mac, play back high-res music just fine. But more than that, and it has, I think, a very nice interface, it will also play to DLNA players, including your Sonos. So I've been able to pick Sonos, play back music from high-res music from my Mac to my Sonos. That is pretty sweet. It will import all kinds of music, not just high-res music. It'll let you see only the high-res music if you want. And, of course, it is what you need to export out to the Well, actually, it's not what you need because the Pono player has an SD card. So you could just put it into a little micro SD. You could put it into your computer and copy it that way. But this is pretty cool. The Pono, it's called Pono Music World. It is free right now from ponomusic.com. And, you know, as we keep looking at iTunes and keep saying, when is Apple going to redo this? Yeah. And most people are not, you know, going to make a music player for the Mac because there's iTunes. So I'm glad to see a new music player. I imagine this will work on Windows as well, which does some really interesting new things, including playback high-res music. And I'm really glad to see it available on Macintosh. So
I also kind of dig the idea of a music company that's really underscoring the importance of the value of the entire album.
Right.
Because I'm sort of kicking myself because only in the past couple of weeks I realized, boy, when was the last time you actually just sat down and listened to an entire album from start to finish instead of just cherry picking the 2, 3 inside a playlist? And actually, just yesterday I listened to Sgt. Pepper start to finish for the first time in years and years and years. It's like, okay, there's a lot of songs. There's a lot more to this than the 3 hits. Excellent.
Playlist creation, it will import your iTunes music automatically when you first install it. It has a lot of interesting advanced tools, some of which are not completely implemented yet. It does rip CDs. It does playback FLAC, as well as the other standard formats. I feel like it's pretty exciting.
Almost makes you want to go out and get a good pair of headphones.
And I will, yeah. Well, that's the other thing. I will have a review for you of the Pono player. In preparation for this, I've been buying high-res music from HD Tracks, but now there's the Pono Music World store as well.
What headphones are you going to use, Leo?
That's a good question. I mean, I have Atomotics, good quality Atomotics. That'd probably be fine for this. I've been using my home stereo headphones, the Hi-Fi Man headphones, are $900 headphones. They're really nice.
We expect to hear some comparisons on those.
Yeah, I'll probably. I mean, I guess I'll listen on those. I have to use an adapter because it's got a mini jack. Doesn't have a phono plug. But I don't know. That's a good question. We'll see if there's a difference between that and the Atomotics. I also have some high-end Shures. I have a variety of small headphones. But I'm just excited. I mean, you know, this is a great story. There's still a lot of argument whether high-res music is going to make any difference at all. But it's here.
You just got to have the whole chain. That's the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's why they did the store, right? And presumably Neil Young is able to go to. It's obvious he's able to go to artists and say, "Hey, I want to put out your music as high-res. We've got a player. We've got an ecosystem." And so they've got a lot of albums. They're going back in the time too with older albums. So this seems to be very similar to the selection at HD Tracks, which is where I've been getting my high-res. And by the way, what high-res means is a standard CD is 44.1 kilohertz sampling rate. That's 44,100 times per second at 16-bit. All of the high-res stuff here is at least 24-bit, and the sample rate usually is higher, whether it's 92 kilohertz or 192 kilohertz. I don't know about the higher sample rates, but certainly a higher bit rate makes a significant difference. And you know, I've asked musicians. I asked Joe Walsh, for instance, I said, "Do you record? When you record, are you know? I'm sure most artists now record in PCM, uncompressed PCM. But I said, what bit rate do you use? He said, well, we always use 24-bit. Right. We may not use that higher sampling rate. We might do 16.
I've accidentally recorded in 192. 24-bit on a sound device's 788, and it was funny. I screwed up the volume on a podcast, and it was way low. You know, it was a long time ago.
Oh, but there's no hiss, is there?
and I had to pull it up from like negative 40 or 50 dB. I just pulled it up, and it was all still there. It sounded just fine.
You know, I am old. I admit it, and I probably don't hear the difference. But I think I do.
Right.
It makes me feel better. And you know, most of these albums are not much more expensive than they'd be. We were talking about some are. Kenny Rogers' The Gambler, for some reason, was like $30. But Taylor Swift's 1989 is $20. And it's FLAC, so it's high-res FLAC. So actually, this is 44.1 24-bit, so I bet you that's how it was recorded. This is a brand new album. Some of the older analog albums are actually in much higher bit rates, much higher sample rates, because they're sampling from analog.
Right.
So they decide to go a little higher. Anyway, my pick, or at least something to pay attention to. For sure, get the Pono Music Player, ponomusic.com, and download that onto your Mac. And I'll give you a further review later down the road after I've played with the giant Pono player. You ain't putting that in your pocket. You think your iPhone 6 Plus is hard to put in your pocket.
That's a big pocket.
Yeah.
It won't bend, but
it can be used as a defense mechanism.
They tell me the reason it's so big is that they're using high-quality DACs and headphone amps in here, and they wanted the space for it. And,
tubes.
And there's no tube.
Tubes.
Sorry. Listen to FLAC and shootin' raw, says Run with Scissors. That's kind of my motto.
There you go.
Thank you, Andy Ihnatko from the Chicago Sun-Times. Always a pleasure.
Always a slice of heaven here. Thank you very much, Leo.
If you want more Andy, and who doesn't, he does 2 more podcasts on the 5x5 network, 5x5.tv, including Ihnatko's Almanac, which he talks about anything he damn well pleases.
Exactly. Whatever noises with my mouth that I have not used during these 2 hours, I then defer. We have rollover noises with my mouth set up with that other podcast.
We also thank Rene Ritchie for being here. imore.com is the place to go, a great place for Mac news. But he also does some fabulous podcasts. imore.com/debug for the Debug podcast is a must listen every week. Thank you, Rene. Always a pleasure. Alex Lindsay shows up when he is not doing more important things, which is most of the time, but we're glad you're here when you're not.
I get here pretty often.
I love it.
I'm literally walking off this set 20 feet, 30 feet away and walking right into the Final Cut virtual user group. So if
oh, good. So how do we get in there?
bit.ly/FCP virtual 4. So it's FCP Final Cut Pro virtual, because it's virtual 4.
So you have to pay to get in there?
It's free. And you can ask questions. You can vote on questions. We'll answer them. And basically, it's who I think are the world experts in Final Cut.
That's awesome.
Sitting on a round table that we built.
And you're already late, so get in there.
I'm already late. So, but come check it out.
It's going on now.
I know,
though, right?
I had them slip the clock, so I got time.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I wish you'd told me.
It's fine.
Well, all right. For those of you who want to know about security, Steve Gibson's next on this network. But those of you who want to know about Final Cut, bit.ly/FCP
virtual 4.
Virtual 4. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We do MacBreak Weekly, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 1900 UTC on twit.tv. Please join us live if you can. But if you can't, on-demand audio and video will always be available at twit.tv/MBW or wherever you get your favorite stuff. Couple of extra little plugs for you. Jason reminds me we are doing the best ofs this year, as we do every year for the holiday week. And we'd love to know what you think were some of the best moments this year in MacBreak Weekly. Twit.tv/best of. Twit.tv/best of. As much information as you can give us. It says time code and stuff. You don't have to know the time code. Whatever you can give us, even if it's just, I remember in January something cool happened. Jason will do his best.
Help make my job a little bit easier, please.
Yeah, do this for Jason. Twit.tv/best of. Another place to go. We've got some brand new shirts. These would be great holiday gifts. In fact, we were looking for something that we could sell that you might want to give the Twit fan in your family. Now, if you're watching this, you're already the Twit fan. So what you do is you drop a hint to tell your loved ones to go to teespring.com/twit. We have 2 different choices. We have a button-down shirt, a standard dress shirt, and we have a polo shirt. So you can choose a variety of colors and styles. And we haven't been publicizing this, and that's been my bad. You have till November 30th. But we promise to get them in your hands in time for the last day of Hanukkah or the first day of Christmas. Whichever comes last. Are black helicopters flying over right now? I think they are. The NSA has arrived.
It's a good shirt to wear, like if we were ever to do a Twit infomercial.
It looks good, doesn't it?
Let your information professionals
nice
at
Twit
Twit
logo right above
set up
your
an investment plan for you and your community.
TEEspring.com/twit. Twit. And you have till November 30th. Thank you, Jason, for reminding me about that. We are out of time. Security Now up next. Thanks for joining us. Now get back to work because break time is over.